Hi friends, welcome to my channel. For those of you that are new here, my name is Caitlin and I like to film eyeshadow palette ranking and review videos as well as the occasional other beauty content sprinkled in. So if any of those things sound interesting to you, this piece of hair, my bangs are not having a moment, but anyways, if any of those things sound interesting to you, I highly recommend that you hit that subscribe button because I post 2 videos every single week. And for those of you that are not new here, my face is happy that you are seeing it again. And I have an exciting video. So if you are new here, a while back I ranked every eyeshadow palette in my collection from Milk Cosmetics, and then I proceeded to do a series on my Instagram and TikTok where I used each palette plus like one little special add-on thing to create a look, and then I did what the video is labeled as a new kind of ranking, but really it was like a bracket style ranking of the looks that I did with each palette and came out with a winner. So this video will be my initial ranking of my Natasha Denona palettes for seeding purposes for the bracket style ranking that is to come. So if you are curious to hear my thoughts on the Natasha Denona eyeshadow palettes that I have, then you should definitely hit that like button and go ahead and keep on watching. If you've watched my monthly ranking videos, I've started doing this thing where I don't number off my rankings. I just go and put the palettes in categories of like, I don't really like them, to I like them, but I don't, really like them, to I really like them, to I love them. So like 4 categories of don't like them, they're okay, like, love, to simplify it. But anyways, I sort of did that with my Natasha Denona palettes, but there's only 12 of them, so I'm also going to give them a number because I also need to for seeding purposes. But anyways, I will tell you which ones are in which category. Also, I just like hurt my rib bending over this chair. But anyways, you may be wondering why I'm doing it now when Natasha Denona is likely to be launching a new palette soon. And the thing is I have an exact even number of eyeshadow palettes from Natasha Denona right now, and when I did the Melt series, I did not have an even number, and so I proceeded to buy 3 palettes to get myself to an even number versus just 1. I went for 3. So anyways, I didn't want to do that for Natasha Denona because there's a lot of Natasha Denona palettes that I don't have, and things can get a little out of control if I did that. So long story short, I have 12 eyeshadow palettes from Natasha Denona, and we're going to start off with, I have 1 palette in the category of I don't really like it, and that is the pastel palette. I think the packaging is beautiful. All of my Natasha Denona palettes are dirty. Let me just get that out of the way. I just don't really like pastel eyeshadows, so I'm not really sure like what my thought process was in buying this. I think I thought there was going to be some depth in here, but there isn't. They're really all pastel shades. I like combining this palette with other palettes. I find that tends to be the look that I like to do, but on its own, it's not my favorite. So this bad boy is number 12, and it is the only palette in my I don't really like it category for Natasha Denona. Next up is my, it's not that it's like I like them, they're okay. Like I like them, but they're not, I don't know. I just like them all right. Like I'm happy I have them, but they're not like not something that I really like, I guess is the best way to describe that. So anyways, number 11 though in the ranking is the Natasha Denona Sunrise palette. This palette I really love. I'm a big Arizona State fan, so these colors work really well when I go to games and stuff, so I do tend to pull this palette out quite a bit around that time. The shimmers are nice. I'm not a huge warm toned eyeshadow fan, but I will say every time I do a warm toned eyeshadow look using this palette, I get tons of compliments on it. So I do really like this palette. I like the shimmers in it. I think it's a nice sunrise color story, but it's just not my favorite color story, so that's why it's in this category. And you might be wondering, it's not your favorite color story, but it sounds like you use it a lot. Yes, I do, but it's not, it's just like when I look at it for these ranking purposes, I'm not like, ooh, I love that one. So next up, number 10 is the only mini palette I have from her, and this is the mini nude palette. This palette is really nice. It's a very nice warm tone neutral look. You like, when you just want your makeup to be easy, I really like these like mini palettes or the quad, or Natasha doesn't have quads, but from other brands like quads. So like 4 or 5 pan color stories where it's like, I just want to have something that looks nice and I don't really want to think about it. Speaking of quads, if you're curious about what's on my eyes, it's not actually a Natasha Denona palette. It is the Carla Cosmetics Romance Quad. That's what I have on my eyes, so if you were curious. But anyways, I really like this palette. I think this is awesome for traveling. You could do like a really beautiful smoky eye using this shade. Which shade is this? I think it's Sienna. Yeah, and it's a duochrome. I was gonna say it looks like a duochrome. So that is a shade that I just think is absolutely lovely. But anyways, you could do like a lighter metallic look. I don't know. I just think this is a really good little palette. I like this a lot. It honestly, I think the packaging is cool too. It really makes me want to get her other mini palettes, and I have to tell myself like I do not need them. Number 9, still in the category that I was talking about where it's like, we like it, okay. This is the Circo Loco palette. This is one of the few big palettes I have from her. I usually only get her big palettes if I have a gift card because they're a little bit outside of my price range. But yeah, I love the shimmers in this palette. I just a lot of times look at this color story and have no idea what to do with it. So I think it's beautiful, but it's just like, I don't know, I look at it and I go, okay, what am I gonna do? Beyond like trying to group it into monochromatic looks, which I think I saw somebody post a picture where they rearranged this palette, and I might have to look at doing that to see if that makes this palette more inspiring for me. But that's really my only issue with this palette. I like it otherwise. It's one of her few like really bright colorful color stories, so you know, I think that's fun. Next up is, in the last palette in this like I like it okay category, is the Zendo palette, and I'm sorry, all of these are so messy. I do like this palette. It's just the shimmers in this palette aren't quite as special as the shimmers in her other palettes, so that's what keeps it here for me. But overall, I think this is a fun color story, and I do still like the shimmers in this palette. It's just, I know they could have been better because they are better in her other palettes. I have quite a few in this next section, I guess. And this section is the really like. So not like a favorite holy grail, but I really like these palettes. So starting with number 7 in the overall ranking, but again, still really like it. There's quite a few of these. This is the Natasha Denona, I don't know why I keep saying her name, but this is the Glam palette. You all know this is Natasha Denona. I can stop saying that. This is definitely a neutral. It's supposed to be a cool tone neutral, but I feel like some of these neutrals go more warm or like truly neutral. So I'm just gonna call it a neutral palette. I've said this before when I've used this palette and ranked it in like my monthly rankings, and it's just a palette that if you want to like look sultry, look sexy, it's a good palette for that. I really like this palette. I think it's gorgeous. Anyways, next up is number 6. This is the this is the My Dream palette. This is her newest palette. Well, she has the baby gold. This is the newest midi, like, of her bigger palettes. That's what that one looks like. I really like this palette. I haven't totally finished reviewing yet. There's a couple of shades I haven't used yet, but overall I've liked every look I've done with this, and I feel like this palette's a nice blend of a lot of her palettes. So you know, it's fun to reach for because I feel like I can get the vibes of her other palettes. So like if I were traveling or something, I could grab this palette and not feel like, I guess what I'm trying to say is you can get a lot of variety with it, if that makes sense. Okay, so we're getting into the top 5. So number 5 is the Love palette. And I always make this joke, but I love the Love palette. Pinks, purples, I don't know if you can tell that I'm wearing pink, but pinks and purples are my favorite. Not a huge fan of like a red, but I don't mind a red when it's paired with pinks and purples. I really do adore this palette. I think the shimmers in this palette are really nice. I think this is a fun color story. I really like this palette. Number 4 is gonna be the bronze palette. I know, I surprised myself because this is very warm tone, but I really love the bronze, like a bronzy eye with this palette. Like these shimmers are just some of her best. Seriously, they're so reflective and sparkly, and similar to the Sunrise palette, if I do a look using this palette, I get tons of compliments on it. So I really like this palette. Number 3, and the last palette in the really like, but not necessarily a favorite of like my whole collection category, is gonna be the Safari palette. I know, who am I? Some of you are gonna be like, I've literally never seen you use this palette. Because I have not used it in a hot minute. If you've been around for a while, then you'll remember my March Sadness series. This palette made it pretty far in that. And I really like this matte color story, and I don't know, I was just vibing with it when I was doing this ranking. I was like, you know what, I do think I like this palette. And I was very intentional in this ranking in that I haven't used any of these palettes recently, other than the My Dream palette. I've reached for it a couple times because I'm in the process of reviewing it. But even that, it's been a couple weeks because I got a lot of new stuff coming into my collection. But anyways, long story short, I intentionally ranked them without having used anything recently. Didn't want to use something today because I just wanted to go off of memory so that when I do the looks, I feel like there may be more variation. Anyways, like variation in like what ends up on top when I do that. You know what I'm saying? Okay, the last 2 palettes that I will be ranking are the second one is the Triochrome palette. This is another one of the big palettes I have from her. I really like this color story. I know that a lot of people didn't love these multichromes because they're not the most shifty or reflective. I do feel like they're shifty, but they're very soft. So the texture looks really nice on the lid, but it's not like such a high shine, like similar, like the multichromes that I have on my lids right now are very high shine. These are not that. They're much softer, but I like them for like the subtleness of the multichrome. And then the matte color story on this, I think, is just stunning and beautiful. So yeah, that's why I put this one number 2. This is another one that I haven't reached for, so I'm glad I'm doing this series because I really do like my Natasha Denona palettes and I need to reach for them more. First place, I'm sure you've all guessed it in the comments at this point. There's one it's not a big palette, but there's one major Natasha Denona palette that's launched within the last couple of years that I'm missing, and that's gonna be the Retro palette. And so, funny story, I don't think I liked this that much initially. I was just sort of underwhelmed by it, and then as time has gone on and I've continued to use it, I really like this. It is one of my favorite palettes in my collection, one of my favorite Natasha Denona palettes. This palette is just stunning. The color story speaks to me. The tones of this palette, I just think work nicely with my eye color, my skin tone, like all of that. I just love it. So that's gonna be number 1. So that is my ranking, just based on memory alone of which palettes are my favorite from Natasha Denona. So if you want to see me do looks with each of those palettes, I definitely recommend you hit that subscribe button because my plan is that I'm going to be doing TikToks and shorts. I may also post them on Reels, but I hate like duplicating. So I might focus more on posting pictures on Instagram and then utilizing shorts here on YouTube for any of you that don't have TikTok. And then also on my TikTok, I will be posting a look with each of these palettes. And when all of that is done, I will do a video where we do like a bracket style, like tournament of the looks and see which palette. I think I'm going to call it like Battle of the Palettes or Palette Tournament. I don't know. Let me know what you think as far as the title goes in the comments, but I'm going to do that. Similar, like I said, to the melt video, I will be doing that. I'm going to have different rules this time in that I'm not going to limit myself to like one like special thing. I'm going to open it up and we'll see if we like that. Because like the way I was doing it with the melt one was that I was like trying to just do an eye look with the palette and then show you what that looked like and then show you if I added an extra special thing on top, like how that made that more special. But I have a ton of like toppers and gems and liner, like colorful liners and things like that I like want to try and use more of, and either as like a base or, you know, just like play around with that. And this series I feel like really allows me to do that. So anyways, that's what I'm gonna do this time. I'm gonna not limit myself, and if I want to use 2 special things, then that's what I'm gonna do. But yeah, that's really it from me. So let me know what you think in the comments down below, if you're excited for me to take on Natasha Denona in this style, and if you're what your thoughts are on the ranking overall. Do you have a different favorite Natasha Denona palette? I'm sure a lot of you have Natasha Denona palettes that I do not have, because she's not someone that I have all of her palette. Like, that's not a brand that I have every palette that's ever launched. But I'd be curious to hear everybody's favorite Natasha Denona palette in the comments down below. But that is it for me, and I will see you all next time.